Hello, welcome to the April Advocacy Update Series. We are excited to have another in our series of conversations that provide our members in the greater community an opportunity to learn about DMI's advocacy work, initiatives, and priorities to get a deep dive in some of the most pressing issues impacting downtown. For the newest edition, I want to welcome you. I'm Jason Nailstrup, president of Downtown Madison Inc. We're going to highlight some DMI advocacy issues that we're paying attention to here in spring. We're going to be followed by a conversation from our special guest and good friend, Rob Gottschalk, a principal at Vandewalle and Associate. Rob leads Vandewalle's economic position, planning, and implementation efforts, and has been doing a ton of work on Regent Street. So we're going to get an update on all things Regent Street later here in this update series. Before we begin, we want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, our major series sponsor, Sanair. Thank you, Sanair, for all you do for the community, to the Fiore companies and Hush Blackwell as well. Three longtime sponsors at DMI. We're very thankful. And thank you for helping sponsor this new advocacy update series. All right, we're going to begin with an update of all things that are happening here at Downtown Madison. Thanks, so you feel aware of what's going on. And if you want to help with any of these efforts, just please send us a note and we would love to connect with you on any of the above. One of the major items this spring that DMI has been working on in the advocacy area is our endorsement process. As you all know, the local elections took place 2 weeks ago here for all 20 alders plus our mayor's office here. And so we were very busy as a government relations committee and a board of directors nominating folks within our organization to make sure that we had the best candidates that met the needs of downtown and will help implement our strategic plan. It was a really fun set of conversations we had with everyone. And we were able to endorse in 19 of the 21 different races. And we had 15 winners of those 19. So we're feeling very strong about the new class that has already started last week here in the city council. And they're meeting again today. Lots of land use planning issues and safety and development, and you name the issues they're going to be going over. So DMI is going to be following those issues very closely. It'll be great to have a series of allies and endorsed candidates as part of the city council. We also are following downtown development. If you've been downtown lately, you've seen all of the cranes. There's more than a dozen cranes and large projects happening throughout the downtown area. We continue to track all of that development in our development tracker. So go to our website in the upper right-hand corner. You can't miss it, the hot pink button that tracks all development, gives a little update, pictures, and articles of what's going on at each of these developments. The major driver of this development is still apartments. We have over 5,000 apartment units in the works as we speak here in downtown Madison. And we're seeing a real boon in the amount of people that are moving into downtown, and that bodes very, very well. We also have a series of large projects that we are watching that are going to be very important for what the new downtown looks like. These are magnets, projects that are going to drive people to come downtown. And these include the new Wisconsin History Center at the top of State Street, where Mifflin, Carroll, and State Street come along. They are already starting to move the old exhibits out of the museum and should start construction sometime early next year. You can join us this week, actually, for a presentation by Christian Oberlin, the executive director of the Wisconsin Historical Society, who's going to go over renderings and all of the fun things that are happening at the top of State. This is a really dynamic project, hundreds of millions of dollars, and we just cannot wait for what it will mean for people coming into downtown. One of my favorite things in downtown is seeing the school buses pull up and all the kids going into the museum, and to be able to do more and more of that is really quite important. Just kitty corner, or I know some of you in Wisconsin say catty corner, but I'm from Minnesota, so I'll say kitty corner. We have the new Veterans Museum as well, and they are a little bit behind the History Museum, but are having a really engaged conversation with the state of Wisconsin now, what a new facility could look like on 30 on the square. Lots of hurdles to get over on that project, but some really interesting work with Chris Golakowski and the team. So we're very excited about what's happening at the Veterans Museum as well. And many of you have heard one of the signature projects, really a generational project, is happening now on the Lake Monona waterfront. It's a 1.7-mile expanse running from Machinery Row all the way through downtown up until Olin Park. And there was a comprehensive planning process and a design challenge with 3 firms that were the finalists, Sasaki, the agency, and James Corner Field Operations. And the public just weighed in, and they really saw a lot they liked in both the James Corner field operations, but in particular with Sasaki. And so the city's ad hoc committee is reviewing all of this now and should be making their decision relatively soon as who will be creating that master plan for that 1.7-mile area. At the same time, we were very excited to hear the news from the White House and the federal government that $15 million more than we already had an additional $11 million will be going towards the new Lake Monona the Lake Monona Drive, John Nolan Drive project. It should be a really dynamic and important project to fix a series of bridges. And this will allow for more funding for the pedestrian and bike side of things. And so this really will kick off the Lake Monona waterfront project. So we're very excited. And we certainly thank President Joe Biden and the federal administration for the $15 million on top of DOT already providing, federal DOT providing $11 million for $26 million total. This was a big day for downtown, and we thank obviously the mayor's office, the city council, and our federally elected officials, Mark Pocan, Ron Johnson, and Tammy Baldwin for all of their support. This will absolutely help ensure that we have a good start to phase 1 of the Lake Monona waterfront project. There are also a few potentially very important projects here in downtown. You may have heard in the news that the Brayton lot is that surface parking lot on East Washington Avenue that the city owns. It's just all surface, where they've started some construction for the bus rapid transit, which has started, and we're very excited about the construction for that. But the city's going to put out a request for proposal, or an RFP, later on this year of what to do with that block. We're excited to be a part of those conversations. This will be a dynamic new block that will help create more and stronger connections between the Capitol Square and Cap East sections of downtown. This could be a lot of housing, a lot of different uses could happen there. And so we're very engaged in this conversation. Just a few weeks thereafter, the state of Wisconsin updated their Vision 2030 on what does their built infrastructure look like throughout the state, but in particular in downtown Madison. And they took a real look at what they want to do with their properties. And of course, they're changing work base since COVID, and now more people are working remotely. And the state has made the decision to vacate Jeff 2 and Jeff 3. Those are the buildings that are bounded by Webster, Butler, Main, and King Streets, kind of that large, I don't know what shape that is. It's been a long time. Trapezoid, maybe? Maybe it's trapezoid. Who knows? Those projects, they're going to put an RFP out, and hopefully we'll see new development there probably in about 5 years' time. This could also be very dynamic, particularly when coupled with what's happening at the, again, we're going to say Kitty Corner project on the Brayton lot. The state is also looking at what they want to do with the state office building, which is on West Wilson Street. Obviously, that's a historically protected building, so there'll be different uses there. But it all feeds in potentially with what could happen with the Lake Monona waterfront, with the Monona Terrace, and a lot of other projects. So some very, very important work happening. And last, and certainly not least, in our advocacy update today is what's happening on the 400, 500, and 600 blocks of State Street. Metro Transit, through the Metro Transit network redesign, has agreed to remove the buses midsummer. And so we have new opportunity to look at and reimagine what the 400 through 600 blocks could be. And there already is a tax increment district, 50, that will help fund a new large parking lot and housing complex on Lake Street that could potentially help fund some new uses for the 400 through 600 blocks. This is a very exciting opportunity and a lot of positive things happening in downtown. So that is our advocacy update. But we want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, again, our supporting sponsors, Fiore Company and Hush Blackwell. And we are lucky enough today to have our good friend, Senior Vice President and Head of Business Development for Sinair, Chris Gillings, who has been our major series sponsor for this project and our project before this, the Nosh at Noon. So Chris is going to say some words about what Sinair and the great work that they're doing throughout our community. Chris, how are you today?
I'm good, Jason. Now that we got the calendar issue sorted out, glad to join everybody today. So thanks for the invite. And as typical, we're excited not only to support DMI's work and the advocacy and light that you bring to downtown and the venues that you create to create conversations like this one, but also just the ability to be a partner in thinking about our mission, which is in enhancing communities and making sure that everyone can enjoy the benefits of living in healthy communities. Sinair is a not-for-profit community development finance group. We are celebrating our 30th year The main thrust of our work involves investing in affordable housing, primarily through the low-income housing tax credit program. But our work goes much, much deeper than that. We're deeply involved in communities like Detroit, where we have a rich history, Wilmington, Delaware, where we also do, but even in other parts of our geography like La Crosse. And it's great to join and to see Rob here today, who's a great partner of ours. Vandewalle has helped us out with some work in that market. And we're really excited about some of the projects and some of the work that's going to come out of that. But for us, and what Nosh at Noon before this in this series has done is really allowed us to think outside the box of our normal affordable housing mission and think holistically about communities, how you advocate for communities, and advancing the conversation around healthy communities for all. And it's exciting to be a part of this new podcast online series, but also to be part of this conversation today. Obviously, a lot of great updates as far as what's going on downtown, and a lot of exciting work along Regent Street. Fun to drive down that corridor and see density, housing, things like that returning to the face of that street. So very excited to have Rob join us to talk about those projects. And again, excited to be part of this series and thanking DMI for the work that you're doing to continually enhance our community here in Madison.
Well, Chris, thank you. I mean, you all really do the hard work here in the community. So if you don't know Chris, his partner, Chris, Nicole, the whole team at Sonera, they are fantastic. They are always doing great work in the community, making sure we have enough affordable housing, doing the sustainable development projects. So huge thank you to our friends at Sonera. All right, well, he teed it up. Chris teed it up perfectly. We're going to talk about Regent Street. If you haven't driven on Regent Street lately, there are a lot of cranes on Regent Street and a lot of development happening on the street, whether or not it's the Bayview in the Triangle or the new projects are happening on the 800 and 900 blocks of Regent Street. That's just the beginning. And we are so excited to have Rob Gottschalk, who is a principal with Vandewalle and Associates. And for the last, oh boy, Rob, probably closer to 10 years, Rob has been working on Regent Street with the group called the Regent Street Revitalization Project. And over the last couple of years, DMI has become the administrative partner on that project. And we are very interested in what's happening here on Regent Street. So Rob, good day to you. Hope you're doing well. And let's just dive right into it. What is the Regent Street Revitalization Group, and what are they working on? What are we working on, I should say? We're together in this project.
Well, right. So the group has been around, and maybe you could touch a little bit on the history, but was founded as the Greenbush Vilas Partnership back, 2013 or something like that, where with a real focus on creating additional housing and repurposing some of the existing buildings behind some of the healthcare facilities and getting more ownership with the small cap TIF program, and that kind of ran its course, and the group was congealed and wanted to focus on another area, and that's when this group of variety of public and private neighborhood stakeholders all kind of came together to say, let's now turn our focus on Regent Street. So since that time, a variety of activities have happened. This group is a kind of a standard reach out of stakeholders who keep common conversations moving and also help advance individual projects, both kind of collectively, but also individually. So that's a little bit about the group. And I don't know if you want to touch on any more history.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a very proud history, and it started with that small cap TIP fund you saw in and around the housing off of Regent Street. Now to just say we want to implement the city's great Regent Street plan from about a dozen years ago is really, important work. And you're starting to see a lot of that work happen. And the group is just a really good, dedicated, and diverse group of folks from students to UW to the large employers in the area, right? UW Health and Meritor and SSM. And also to the neighborhoods and to the elected officials, Alders Tag Evers and Alder Verveer and Bennett and Vitavere have been a very strong part of this, as have many of the city leaders like Matt Wachter and Matt Miklajeski. And so it's an exciting group. So Rob, one of the main things that this group did is create an opportunity analysis of what could look like and how do we plan the future of Regent Street. I'm going to pull up a slide here to sort of go over what we're looking at and what potentially the opportunities could be for Regent Street. There are myriad of opportunities. We're starting to see those opportunities now. So what are we looking at here with this opportunity analysis? What we could see here on State Street, or excuse me, on Regent Street. Right now, we're looking at a map where the campus is on the north-hand side. And you can see Lake Monona Bay there on the bottom right-hand corner with Camp Randall circled on the left, and then the Cole Center on the right-hand side. So Rob, what does this opportunity analysis show? What could happen on Regent Street?
Yeah, I think so. Once the group kind of congealed and decided they wanted to focus more on Regent, as you mentioned, the city had led a neighborhood planning process back in 2008, basically established what I would call kind of a corridor plan called the Regent Street South Campus Plan. Pretty solid regulatory document that kind of framed out what should happen over time. But as time went on, I think people wanted to see some things happen. So the conversation was, well, how do we start to implement and create the energy around some of these key projects that could move forward? So we kind of explored what that could mean and how to, kind of be a little bit of a fire starter to move some projects forward. So I'm not going to go over all of these that you see on the screen, but I think if you kind of orient yourself, you see the two big game day destinations circles kind of on the campus north side, which is Camp Randall and Cole Center, and then you have kind of our medical Park Street campus with various players there. And then Monroe Street on the left and West Wash on the right. And one of the key things that I think everybody agreed upon is, on the left-hand side, we have Monroe Street meets Regent, and the energy of Camp Randall and that area, it could be far more than it was. And then this was in 2017, 2018, when this kind of work was done. But this whole area has more potential as a grand signature kind of community gateway space and public space, and kind of raising that awareness and how all those implementation partners, because you've got UW athletics, you've got the city, you've got Hotel Red, you've got the Regent, all kind of coming together around this intersection that's a tricky one at best and odd. So I think the goal was to do improvements around this area as a cohesive whole with some additional redevelopment and as you can see, a lot of that's been done. The city made a great improvement to the Crazy Legs little triangle park there. UW Sports is transformed the front of the field house itself and the frontage. I think you see what's happening with Hotel Red, and I think the next big corner is really what happens with that wedge on the west end of the Regent, and kind of looking at those properties. And that was one of the ideas, is to say, how could that be transformed, and how could that look completely different and serve a role as a gateway to the university, but also a public space 24/7. 365 days a year for the neighborhood, and where the university meets the neighborhood, and certainly would be a completely different experience for game day versus kind of tripping over the snow fence and the railroad tracks and the mud, and really creating an urban plaza there that would meet a variety of objectives. So that's kind of a goal for this area, and still some work to come with maybe some of the ability to redevelop that end of the site as well. And I know there's been players looking at that and investigating that opportunity. As we move down, if you want to go back, now just kind of go back to the original graphic, maybe just for a second. I'll just hit on these, and maybe if you still want to go back, we can do that. But there's other things, like you see the opportunity for game day experience that's different. Parking has been a common challenge and is only getting more challenging. Could there someday be a game day excursion rail opportunity that brought people from Middleton or Sun Prairie or Janesville all coming to the game? Other universities like Iowa do that every football game, and that's something that continues to be explored as a big game day change. There's opportunities for mixed use housing. I think that's obviously already happening. There's going to need to be some urban open space along the street as it transitions. I think you're going to see, redevelopment and reinvestment by the healthcare facilities that are already there, long-term, long-standing legacy players that are going to continue to evolve those sites and probably densify and activate them more. This kind of heritage of the Greenbush neighborhood and the Italian heritage market destination was an idea that kind of said, the players on the team from Italian Workingmen's Club and UW said, God, there's got to be something more. And I think there still is an interest before all of those kind of historic uses and kind of destinations from that era are gone. I think there could be the ability to kind of build on something there. And then finally, there's kind of this bigger idea of connecting. Monroe Street comes down, you get to the end to Regent, you kind of look down Regent and go, I don't know if I'm going to keep going down. But at the end of the day, I think as this whole corridor densifies, you'll really have a pedestrian experience from the Capitol down West Wash through Regent Street to Monroe Street or vice versa. And that'll be a much different way that the community, I think, will experience the street.
Well, and I think you're already seeing some of this development today happen, right? Significant development, particularly on this Cole Center area. You've got Trinitas's about 350 unit apartment building, CRG's the corner of Park and Regent there. They've got about, I think it's 175 unit building. And then, of course, Bayview with the incredible work that they're doing. They're deep into phase 2 of their really powerful work. And then, of course, the CDA and working with New Year Investments and Ann and Sarah, Ann Morrison and Sarah Newyer, to really look at what the private properties could look like at the bottom of the triangle. So you're starting to see much of this development. In fact, 1313 project, the apartments above Rod Ripley's project above Lucky's is already taking place. And we're starting to see more of these street side amenities that matter for creating that cohesion, right? If it's we've got Fabiola's, the old Rocky Rococo's turning into Sam Brown and the team are going to create a kind of a red leather Italian deli and restaurant type of space, right? You've got Leopold's Bookshop. You've got institutions like Greenbush Bakery that are already there, and the Jewelers and Choles and other places. But you also have Budget Bikes, and then now, just in the last couple of days, you've seen the folks at Harvey House are going to open up a fast casual restaurant right next to Budget Bikes at Orchard. So it's going to be just a really dynamic area, and you're starting to see this. You're also starting to see the university put some potential infrastructure into this, including into parking. So Rob, it really is interesting to see this plan. And how have you seen this plan, with the projects that I've already talked about? How do you see that taking root? And then what's going on with the public side? I know that a TIF has been created to really look at the street itself and the streetscape. And what does that look like? And what do you think has to happen on the street itself to make those better connections between the buildings, the built environment, and the different institutions and the large institutions that are on and near the street?
Well, that's a great question. I think that's one of the things in our last meeting when we kind of talked about where to from here as development is now happening. That's probably one of the biggest, elements of the conversation was, boy, we got to make sure that we kind of handle this. The street is not a very, it's a tight urban street. And I think the standards for development on a lot of the, there's, from 12 stories down to, 4 or 5 stories, but it's going to be more dense than it obviously is today and a very narrow right of way. And I know the city has plans and put the TIF district in place to help rebuild the street. And I think that will be, on the city's agenda here and then in the not too distant future. So getting that done in a way that, just if you look at right now, I think of the street as you see a lot of students crossing Regent Street as you drive down over the years. Now they're going to be living on the street as well as other markets. So there's going to be a lot more people living on the street. The game day activities still happen. So accommodating pedestrians in a way that that works and also creates some urban spaces. Those are the things that can easily get left out if not proactively done, because otherwise each developer, each project property owner kind of plods along and does their specific project. So I think some intentional work on not only, some of the urban spaces and as this corridor densifies and allows things to happen for, big events, but also housing diversity is going to have to be something that is a focus. And how do you provide not only student housing, but is there the opportunity for other housing opportunities that feeds to the huge employment corridor, both to the north and to the south, and in the healthcare community, and how we think about that, and obviously the game day experience. So all those are kind of intentional efforts that need to be thought about, and the public improvements that need to be envisioned, I think need to be identified now. And there's certainly plenty identified in the plan, but as you start to see what the projects are likely to be, kind of codifying those and hopefully being able to get a few of those into the project plan over time with the city for the TIF district, I think should be, and I think has been raised by the group as one of the objectives, to tie this whole area together, because it is, as you said, it's going to be a lot different. It's not going to be one thing. I think that's the other thing. This is kind of a little bit different animal, because it's where all these things come together: the university, healthcare, the neighborhoods, some history, all kind of come together around this corridor. And I think it's not going to be just one thing. It's going to be a multitude of things when it kind of matures and grows up, and ensuring that happens, I guess, in a way that reserve that diversity of activity and energy as a place, I think is important. And I think some of those things that are going on right now, as you mentioned, Jason, we always had the Green Bush or Big Ten and Hong Kong Cafe, but I think you're going to see more kind of mixed, restaurant and other destinations like Fabiola's, Leopold's, what Harvey House is doing, and other things are kind of going to blend in there with additional housing, and it's going to create a destination not only for game day, but also all year round, as the corridor becomes kind of one of our urban neighborhood destinations.
All right, one last question. If you had one dream or one thing that could happen on Regent Street over the next 10 years, what would you like to see happen?
One.
Just one.
I would love to see that triangle transformed at Regent and Monroe, because I think it's such an underutilized place, and have some new development in that area that would kind of round it out. I think that would be pretty transformational for how the community connects and how the campus connects to the community.
Well, Rob, thank you. Thank you for making these things happen. We really appreciate that all you and the team do at Vandewalle Associates to ensure that the Regent Street area has many diverse voices, trying to create, vibrancy, trying to create an inclusive and equitable place where everyone feels like they can live, work, and play. And we're just so thankful that this section of downtown is really seeing some new energy. And a lot of that comes down to you and many of those others that have been part of these conversations on the Regent Street group for years. So thank you to Rob Gottschalk, again, principal with Vandewalle Associates. We're very thankful for him. We're also thankful for our sponsors, our major series sponsor, Chris Jillings and the team that's in there, and also our good friends at Fiore and Hush Blackwell. Again, I'm Jason Ilster, president of Downtown Madison, Inc., and we'll see you next month for another advocacy update. Hope to see you soon, and we'll hope to see you downtown. Have a great day now.